Hi, I'm Dave, founder of Halloween Year Round, and I'm excited because this is my official first movie review of 2025. I know that I did my video of the 10 horror movies I'm most looking forward to, but this is the first one I've seen and I'm now reviewing. And so far, it is both my favorite horror movie of the year and my least favorite horror movie of the year because it's the only one I've seen thus far. We're only a couple days into 2025, and we're off to a decent start. I'm, of course, talking about the new historical horror drama, The Damned.
Should not be here.
Help me! Help
Not to be confused with the other historical drama, also a period piece set in a similar time period, also called The Damned, also released on the exact same day. Why aren't more people talking about this weird coincidence? We have a fishing post owned by a character played by Odessa Young. Horror fans will probably recognize her from the 2020 reboot of The Stand. And then the other major player you're going to recognize in this is, of course, Rory McCann, who played the Hound in Game of Thrones. I'm going to keep this as spoiler free as possible. Like I said, it's a fishing outpost. They're here for the winter, and a decision they make early on has very grave consequences and winds up kind of haunting them and tormenting them. And it has something to do with the Draugr from Nordic mythology. If you've seen Robert Eggers' The Northman, they also appeared in that. So, what do I like about The Damned? First of all, I love the setting. I don't know if you guys know this. I was a history major. I went to school to be a history teacher. So I love it when history and horror kind of blend together, and I want there to be more of the subgenre. So I love that aspect of it. I love the isolation. Again, much like The Shining or The Thing, you've got these people out in the middle of nowhere during the winter. There's nowhere to go, and even from the beginning, you feel for them and the isolation. I love all the sea shanties. Not since The Lighthouse has a recent historical horror movie delved so hard into catchy and entertaining sea shanties, and I feel like The Damned would make a great companion piece to The Lighthouse. I'm probably going to add it to my snowed in horror playlist with movies like The Shining, The Thing, 30 Days of Night. These are the movies that are my first ones to go to when it starts snowing outside to really set the mood. So I loved its sense of atmosphere. I loved that you genuinely felt for these characters because even though you didn't always agree with them and you're like, damn, that's harsh, they're doing that, you always understood why. They were portrayed as three dimensional and sympathetic in that when you're drowning, it's hard to try to think about saving someone else because you're so preoccupied with the fact that you need to survive. And I think that this movie, in a very bleak manner, which I love, really drove that point home. It has a great setting. It's shot on location. This is a lower budget, indie-ish horror movie, but oh my god, the backgrounds are spectacular and they look so much better than any big budget Hollywood blockbuster because it's not green screen. They're actually out there in the mountains, in the snow, and it's just this vast landscape that's kind of gorgeous to look at. And even though it was blinding in the movie theater because you go from scenes where they're like inside their cabin and it's very dim, lit only by candles, to like outside in the snow, and several times my eyes were like, whoa. I had to adjust to the sudden change in lighting. I loved its sense of atmosphere, and I loved the whole, like, are these people going insane or are they actually being haunted by something? I love that things like Draugr are getting referenced and mentioned in more horror movies. I think we're all familiar with like the big famous ones. We've all heard of the Wendigo. We've all heard of like the Jersey Devil. We've all heard of Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster. I love that this movie kind of introduces audiences to one they might not be as familiar with. It had the potential, emphasis on had, to be really good and maybe even achieve classic status. What holds it back, I think, and again, I'm trying to say this without getting into spoilers, I hated the last 10 minutes. I think that it was such an effective buildup, and it just botched that ending. Not because I didn't like the way it ended, and not because I thought it wasn't well made. It was. It's very well acted. It's well directed. All the pieces are there. It just it goes for a very obvious thing that I kind of called, and most of the audience called in the beginning, like in the first 20 minutes, like, oh, I think this is how it's going to end. And it was one of those cases where you're like, please don't end this way because I don't want to have so easily predicted where you were going with this. Please don't do that. And then it not only does that, but then it kind of just abruptly ends as if, like, in editing, they forgot to add one last scene or something. So, as the first horror movie of 2025 that I'm reviewing, we're off to a decent start. Let's not forget last year, it was Night Swim. Huge improvement over Night Swim. Like, if this movie is Citizen Kane compared to Night. I mean, every movie is Citizen Kane compared to Night Swim. But on its own merits, it's decent. I enjoyed it. Even though I wasn't crazy about the way that it ended, it didn't mean that I didn't enjoy the journey it took to get there. And I will still probably add this to my Snowden playlist. So the next time it snows, I may be putting on The Damned. But hey, these are just my thoughts. This is just my review. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What did you think of The Damned? Did you see it? It was released at my local Regal, so I feel like it got a decent enough wide release. So I'm hoping people saw it. If for no other reason, just I love to see indie horror do well and succeed. Like, share, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff. If you don't, you may be stuck on an Icelandic fishing post in the middle of winter with a creepy supernatural thing terrorizing you. And as always, every day is Halloween.